fifth time unlucky. Who is responsible and why? Saint-Tabai Ole Kanchori, of course, will be in the house and, of course, to speak to us about his account in his book named Why Baba is Not the Fifth. Explain to us what could have possibly gone wrong for Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga. Of course, beside that, our reporters have been up and running, of course, to keep you up to date with the latest development in the world of politics, sports, business, locally and around the globe. But first thing first, here is what is coming up next. Tonight, unlawful and unwanted, defiant Azimio holds town hall meetings in Murang'a hours after police announce its cancellation. Time for talks. Azimio and Kenya Kwanza hold its first bipartisan talks as fate of Kinan and Posing still unknown. $1,000 million for you. President William Ruto says government will fund Red Cross operations. Plus, a survey conducted by TIFA shows that 47% of Kenyans agree President William Ruto won the August 9th elections. Right, many thanks for joining us tonight. Of course, I'm in full company of Moses Gitonga as our sign language interpreter tonight. My name is AUMA Evans. Remember, we welcome your contribution and comment on all of our social media platforms. That is on Facebook at KUTV Kenya, on Twitter at KUTV_Kenya, at AUMA Evans. Remember to use the hashtag #PrimetimeNews. And of course, Primetime News now begins. Opposition leader Raila Odinga, accompanied by other Azimio leaders, were in Murang'a for a town hall meeting just hours after area police boss David Matheu announced its cancellation. Azimio leaders have requested the government to create job opportunities for the youth, further requesting the government, I beg your pardon, to immediately dispense money to counties in order to prevent further protest. Edward Nyamu kick off our bulletin tonight with that report.
Despite Murang'a police boss David Matheu issuing a report on the cancellation of Azimio meetings in Murang'a, Azimio leaders led by their principal Raila Odinga turned a blind eye to the report, mounting a town hall meeting in the region. Some of the issues that were raised by the Azimio leaders were lack of jobs for the youths, asking the government to come up with programs that can provide job opportunities for the young generation. According to Odinga, Kenyans should not be divided along ethnic lines.
Shida ilikuwa mbaya kabisa katika taifa hii. Wakenya waliungana pamoja. Wajaluo, Wakikuyu, Wakamba, Waluhya, wote walikuja pamoja. Kwa sisi tunasema tunataka Kenya ile kitu kimoja. Hapana leta siasa ya ukabila ya ubaguzi. Raila ni wadui wa Kikuyu.
Additionally, Odinga stated that the planned demonstrations will take effect once the Muslim celebrations are over, and therefore the Azimio leaders have requested the government to meet their demands to avoid further demonstrations.
Mpaka ujue sasa mimi nimejisikia kwamba kazi hakuna kwa vijana. Wale wakulima wa kahawa sasa bei imerudi chini, na hata ile gharama ya mbolea bado imepanda juu na kadhalika. Walikuwa wanapata 120, imerudi sasa 70. Sio? Majani chai, wale vijana wanakaa hawana chochote. Kazi mtaani ambayo ilikuwa wakati ile sasa hakuna. Sasa mtu mwingine anakuja Anasema vijana waache kupunya pombe.
On the other hand, accompanying leaders led by Martha Karua, Eugene Wamalwa, and Jeremiah Kioni stated that they will not be scared by the government, asking the residents of Murang'a to support them in the upcoming protest that aims to put pressure on the government to reduce the cost of living in the country.
Kwa hivyo tusigawanywe kwa misingi ya kikabila, tusigawanywe kwa maeneo. Shida ni shida, na kama uongozi ni waharamu kwa kila mtu. Kwa hivyo tuwe na jukumu la kuona Kenya imepata uongozi ule tunahitaji.
The meeting was held after Azimio leaders made an agreement with the former governor of Murang'a, Mwangi wa Iria. Edward Nyamu, KUTV.
Right from Murang'a to Nairobi. Azimio la Umoja and Kenya Kwanza bipartisan committee members have today held their first inaugural meeting, where the committee, through a statement released by Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo, through his Twitter handle, resolved that their respective party leaders will determine whether the nature of the talks will be parliamentary or extra-parliamentary. Our very own James Muriki with more details. Alright, that story will be coming to you later on after it has been worked on. Now, moving on. President William Ruto has today met with officials from the Kenya Red Cross Society, where he promised that the government will be funding projects for the society. The president has also promised that the government will allocate 100 million shillings to the society beginning July this year.
The government will allocate 100 million shillings to the Kenya Red Cross Society this year, President William Ruto has announced. The president, who is the society's patron, attended the board meeting in South Sea, where he stated that the government will be funding the Kenya Red Cross Society.
Beginning this year, we will reinstate budgetary support by the government of Kenya to the Kenya Red Cross, beginning with Kenya shillings 100 million this year. We will continue to work with the Kenya Red Cross to look at their financial position.
President Ruto has also stated that the government wants to submit a law to Parliament geared towards getting rid of levies and a number of other taxes from the Kenya Red Cross.
The issues of fees and levies that are charged by government agencies, that again we are going to prepare a law to be presented to Parliament to exempt Kenya Red Cross from government levies and some taxes, so that being a government agency, even though performing auxiliary functions, I think Kenya Red Cross qualifies as a government agency.
Ruto has also instructed that the Kenya Red Cross takes ownership of its rented logistics center offices, which belong to the Kenya Wildlife Services, in order to cease paying rent to a government agency.
I call on all our partners and donors and other stakeholders to join the government of Kenya in supporting the Kenya Red Cross to undertake its auxiliary role in connection with humanitarian matters.
President William Ruto says that the Kenya Red Cross Society has been cooperative to the government in numerous ways, and therefore requested the government and citizens to back the society's efforts in addressing challenges affecting this society. The president has also directed the Health Cabinet Secretary Wafula Nahumicha to establish a good relationship between the Kenya Red Cross Society and the Medical Practitioners Centers for medical training programs. Joseph Kiss, KUTV.
Right, back to our bipartisan talks between Azimio la Umoja and Kenya Kwanza that was held by its committee today. The first inaugural meeting, where the committee, through a statement released by Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo, through his Twitter handle, resolved that their respective party leaders will determine whether the nature of the talks will be parliamentary or extra-parliamentary.
The bipartisan inaugural meeting held today, the committee, through a statement released by Otiende Amolo, one of the co-chairs of the committee,
The committee noted that, and I quote, "This first meeting was meant to set the climate for the talks about Achu talks." The meeting has endorsed George Morogara and Otiende Amolo as joint chairs and spokespersons of the committee. The team has preliminarily discussed a framework for engagement of the bipartisan talks. The team agreed that each party will develop its framework for harmonization in their subsequent meeting. Resolved to engage appointing authorities on the nature of the talks, of whether they will be parliamentary or extra-parliamentary, the political players to refrain from statements that may be counterproductive in the committee, and resolved to convene its next meeting on Tuesday 25th. In the same breath, the leaders of the majority and minority in the National Assembly and the Senate, in their first informal meeting today, failed to come to an agreement on whether Member of Parliament Aidan Kenan of the Jubilee Party and Pokot Member of Parliament David Kosin of the Kenya Union Party will continue to be included in the bipartisan talks negotiations committee, and saying that the issue will be resolved by the leaders of their parties. As the bipartisan committee meeting kicked off today, the committee members are now expecting to find solutions on the demands raised by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition. James Mureke Mwenda, KUTV.
Right, thank you, James, for that comprehensive reporting. Now moving on. A recent opinion poll conducted by Trends and Insight for Africa, that is TIFA Research, shows that 48% of Kenyans believe that President William Ruto won the 2022 presidential election, while another 37% believe he lost. The research has also unveiled President Ruto's United Democratic Alliance Party as the most popular party, with support from 45% of Kenyan voters, while the closest rival is Raila Odinga's Orange Democratic Movement (ODM) at 28%. At the same time, 16% of Kenyans support either of the country's political formation.
The poll results released by TIFA Research stem from engagement with Kenyan voters from 11th to 19th March, taking into account views of 2,065 respondents who were chosen randomly. The results show that a majority of Kenyans believe President Ruto won against Raila Odinga in August 2022 election. According to the poll, up to 48% of Kenyans believe that Ruto won the election, while 37% reject his win as they believe he never won. Another 15% of Kenyans are unsure about the winner. An analysis of individual candidate supporters shows that 3/4 of those who voted for President Ruto are sure that he won, in a stark difference to 71% of Odinga's voters who are sure that their preferred candidate never lost and that President Ruto is an imposter. On party popularity, UDA leads the pack at 45%, ODM follows at 28%, Jubilee 5%, Wiper 2%, while other parties struggle to get even a percentage point. 16% of Kenyans, however, have no party affiliation. TIFA says that ODM popularity has been tanking since July last year, when it was leading at 46%. UDA remains the party of choice in Mount Kenya and North Rift Valley regions. Azimio, on the other hand, is widely accepted in Nairobi, Coast, Nyanza, East and South Rift regions, though UDA also has considerable support in those areas. TIFA findings state that a large chunk of opposition supporters have no problem with Azimio MPs working with the government, while 59% want Uhuru Kenyatta to retire from active politics. Israel Omwai, KUTV, Nairobi.
The National Assembly has approved the nomination of Bishop David Oginde as the new chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Bishop Oginde was appointed by President William Ruto on the 11th of March to take over from Bishop Eliud Wabukala, who retired after serving 2 full terms. The report on his approval was tabled in the National Assembly today afternoon for debate by the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee chaired by Tharaka Member of Parliament, Honorable George Gitonga.
This House approves the appointment of Dr. David Adang Oginde as the chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Right, now away from politics, health lobby groups want Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakhumicha to revoke appointment he made to various management positions at the ministry last evening. The report led by the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers says the process was discriminatory in nature and have threatened to go to court next week should the complaint be ignored. In their changes, of course, Dr. Patrick Amoth will continue serving as the acting Health Director General. Others acting appointees include Deputy Director General Dr. Zainab Gura, Director of Family Health Dr. Andrew Mulwa, among other directors and division heads. Now to rather some disturbing news. The government and the management of Thika Main Prison is in the process of shifting inmates to the nearby Yatta, Ruiru and Murang'a prison in an effort to decongest the prison. The decision follows reported concerns of a cholera outbreak at the correctional facility. The incident left at least 2 inmates hospitalized out of 38 who were affected.
In the past few days, isolated cases of patients showing symptoms of cholera have been reported in parts of the country, including Kisumu. The Kamen prison is among the affected institutions, prompting a visit by the Correctional Services Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni to the institution to assess its current health status. Speaking in support of the decision to decongest the prison, PS Muthoni said that the program will ensure the inmates live decently.
Priority is to the welfare of every human being, treat them with dignity and ensure they are able to access basic needs.
She says that the inmates will be spread across the neighboring prisons to ease congestion within the Kamen prison. She also reported that they have managed to contain the situation, adding that it would have been easier to prevent the spread of cholera if the facility had not been crowded.
But we've been able to contain, and we are also taking other measures. We will move probably some of the prisoners to other stations.
The PS has instructed the prison management to ensure that new prisoners are screened for cholera before admission into the facility. This is after it emerged that some newly admitted inmates acted as carriers for the disease.
But we still have to be vigilant on the entrance from outside. Anybody who is coming from outside, we must be able to test them.
The facility received a water tank from Thika MP Alice Ng'ang'a, even as the prison wardens are urged to maintain high levels of hygiene in the facility to curb the spread of the ailment. Dorothy Musyoka, KUTV.
Right, that's a good time for us to take our first break here on KUTV Prime Time News. Of course, coming up next is that big interview that we are all been waiting for. Of course, St. Bao Ole Kanchori will be joining us live via Zoom to give his count of the story concerning the book he published, Why Baba Is Not the Fifth. That and many more up next after this short break. See you in a while.
Wataalamu watatu wamekutanisha bongo zao na kuweza kutafuta suluhu kwa wakulima ili pesa zisiishie kwenye malisho.
Amongst ile mimea tuko nayo tunauza, Super Napier Pacton 1 is the most promising, so embrace it and it will be good for your establishment.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto kutoka nchi za Amerika ya Kati wanaendelea kuwasili kwenye mpaka kati ya Marekani na Mexico.
But folks are going. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ni habari kutoka pembe zote duniani.
Pipopa si kukufuku. Pipopa ni idea.
Tazidi ananyonya, hanyonyi vizuri, anakuwa hayuko comfortable.
Jeshi la Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo linapambana na waasi wa ADF.
Kwa sasa wanatoa wito kwa mashirika, makampuni na vile vituo vya uchukuzi.
Mambo mengi yatakwenda kama yalivyopangwa.
Hapa ni kuna mmoja wa viongozi wa chama cha wavuvi katika eneo hili.
Zaidi tunajaribu kuwapa chanjo ili ina boost ama inanyanyua kinga ya mwili, ndio inaenda kupelekea kupambana na virusi.
Ni dunia ni leo, Jumatatu mpaka Ijumaa, moja kwa moja kutoka VOA Swahili, Washington DC.
Access to knowledge, solution to unanswered questions.
Guidelines to pursuing your rights and repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
Right, welcome back, and of course we continue with this particular program right now, and we invite your feedback. Remember, you can reach us on all of our social media platforms, on Facebook at KUTV Kenya, on Twitter at KUTV_Kenya, at AUMA events, the hashtag to use Primetime News. And this is the time now where I usher you into this particular discussion that we'll be having with Senator Ole Kanchori. Now, the fifth time unlucky, why? That is the question that many are asking. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga's chief agent Senator Ole Kanchori sheds light on what could have possibly cost Odinga the presidency on his fifth stab. In his book titled Why Baba Is Not the Fifth, Senator highlights the true accounts on how President William Ruto beat the Azimio leader through a simple, predictable strategy to become the fifth president of the Republic of Kenya. Now, this is the good time to usher in Senator Bao. And of course, thank you so much, Senator Bao, for making time to speak to Primetime News. And I'll begin by, first of all, taking account and, of course, quoting your book before we talk, we go through what your book and actually what you intend to achieve. Your book talks about what could have, been possible should you have done things differently. And this begs the question, as chief agent, of course, responsible with the sole mission of protecting and safeguarding the vote, did you fail your party leader, Ole Kanchori?
Thank you, Evans, and a very good evening to KUTV viewers, the young people of Kenya, the future that you had been promised all these years, that you are the future leaders. I want to tell you tonight that the future is here. You don't have to wait any longer. You need to be the leaders of today. Evans, once again, thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. As you can see, I'm already lounging in my house. I was just waiting for this interview before I hit the sack. I hope you can hear me very clearly. But to answer your question,
All right, so I can hear you, Ole Kanchori. And of course,
very good, very good.
Yeah, you can start by at least giving us your account of the story. As a chief agent, of course, did you fail your party leader?
So I've laid out the whole story. I've laid it bare in the book. People who have something to hide and something to fear usually don't write books. Books are written by people who have nothing to hide and nothing to fear. So the whole essence of the book is to set out the factors that essentially cost us as Azimio the presidency, which really was ours for the taking and for the having. And as chief agent, ordinarily an election of the magnitude of that of a president is not run by one person. It is run by an infrastructure that is spread out across the country. And that infrastructure ordinarily is managed at two fronts. It is managed at the campaign secretariat, and it is also managed at the election day monitoring command center. So my book that you've talked about that has caused quite a sensation across this republic and beyond lays out the factors, particularly at the command center, that it essentially became, what stopped Baba from being the fifth. So I encourage our young people to read the book. I am not here to tell them what is contained in the book because I know they are good readers. They can read for themselves, decipher, and construe. I will make the book available in public universities across the country, including KU, for the benefit of those who want to read. Those who can afford to pay, of course, can always pay, but I will make sure that KU University and other universities across the country get their free copies for the benefit of our young people.
All right. Still, you haven't answered my question. Of course, I ask you, of course, as a chief agent, you had one mission. Did you fail your party leader? And of course, second, you talk about some factors. What are some of these factors for the benefit of the viewers who might not have a chance to read your book, Ole Kanchori?
Well, for those who will not have a chance, I'm saying the book will be there for everyone to be able to access, even for free at some of these institutions. But also, I have said that an election of president is not managed by an individual. I have said in the book that what failed us was the organizational structure, and it was essentially an organizational problem. There was no way, even the candidate himself cannot make himself president. He needs an infrastructure. So I have very clearly explained in the book how that infrastructure failed. And so the question whether an individual can fail is really neither here nor there. It is the infrastructure that failed. And the reason that the infrastructure failed, but primarily, if I was to put a finger to it, I would say it was mostly because of sabotage. There were other factors, but the primary factor that led to the failure of the infrastructure was sabotage. And that sabotage, I have ascribed the persons that I considered to be the saboteurs. I have laid it bare in the book. And Evans, you do not expect me to come to your show to give away the contents of a newly released book. That would be asking too much.
All right. Well, you have just spoken to my curiosity, and of course, this is what many people are asking. When you talk about sabotage, and who are these people who are responsible for the sabotage, and for what gain? What could be possibly the reason why they could sabotage an election that you have been working so hard, of course, not only to win, and of course, even to protect your win in the process?
So I wouldn't be able to say for what reason they sabotaged Baba from becoming the fifth. But the people who commandeered the command center, because the command center was essentially commandeered away from the persons who, such as myself, who are really the people who are supposed to run it. Remember that a command center is a nerve center of operations in an election. The nerve center of operations in an election, to the extent that I have compared in the book, I have compared the command center to your nervous system as a person. So you know the reason that you're able to lift your hand and the reason that you're able to raise your to lift your leg and raise your hand, even to speak, is because your nervous system is operating optimally. If your nervous system has a problem, if you get any problem in your nervous system, you get paralysis. And so such was the case in the command center, in the Azimio command center. There was sabotage of the command center, and as a result of that, there was paralysis of operations relating to the election. I have said in the book, I have named the persons that I felt are responsible. I have said why they're responsible. And yes, I think that should answer your question.
All right. Well, some of your critics, Ole Kanchori, said some peddle your book as a lie. Others blame you, of course, for had you done your work, probably today things would have been different. How do you respond to such claims?
Well, first of all, for those who are saying it is not true, could they kindly present their truth also so that we can hear it? Because it is not enough to say what someone else is saying is not true. It is, I think it is necessary that you provide your counter to say what the truth is. I think for those who are saying that the Azimio operations were very smooth, they operated very well, that argument really does not fly, in my view, because if we had a very well-organized system, by now we would have even had our own results. We never had our results for the election of president, and the reason was because of the things that I've talked about in the book. The reason we are asking for the servers to be opened, we would be asking for the servers to be open with our results, to say that these are our results, and therefore we're asking the server to be open to confirm that our results are the accurate results. But as you know, Azimio has not been able to present its set of results for the reasons that I have explained in the book. So that issue of the people who are criticizing the book on account of the veracity of the matters raised therein, I think it is obvious that the book is factual. I have no reason to present lies or anything like that. I was at the center of operations. I know exactly what happened. I have come out to speak the truth so that we can encourage, even in elections, a culture of being truthful. And that is why I also support the opening of the servers, because it is extremely essential for us to, as a country, embrace accountability, embrace transparency in matters relating to elections. On the issue of, because this is the third time you're asking whether I failed to carry out my functions, I think that again is for any objective onlooker, and for any objective observer and thinker, they would know that I went beyond my call of duty, above and beyond my call of duty, to try and ensure that Raila Odinga became the fifth president of this great republic, because of the commitment that I had for really the cause of the Raila presidency in 2022. So I have not had to defend myself too much for that, because I think everyone who really has an objective mind knows that I put everything on the line. I worked very hard. I put myself out there. I was uncompromisable. I worked extremely hard, but I again, with the internal sabotage that I've talked about in the book, it was not to be. And yes, so that I think should answer the question. But again, I don't have any apologies to make to anybody who thinks they want to insist on that position. The facts speak for themselves, as lawyers say. When the facts speak for themselves, you don't have to really make a case.
All right. You have spoken about, Azimio lacking your own tallying, like the tallying figures, and you spoke about some, the reason why you want the server to be open because, you want to know the truth. And this begs the question, if you did not have your own figures, then how would you argue about, at some point you said, okay, the Azimio team, of course, said they had 8.1 million against William Ruto's 5-point-something million. How did you arrive at those figures if you did not have your own independent tallying, of course, tallying center to verify such numbers?
Evans, you know very well that those results were from the whistleblower. Mm-hmm. The 8.1 and the 7 million votes, or the 6-point-something, 5.9, 7.1, 8.1 and 5.9 votes, those figures are not from Azimio, they are from the whistleblower. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can reframe your question, but we have never as Azimio presented really our set of results. For the simple reason that we don't have them. I mean, that is a fact.
But when we went to, of course, the Azimio went to the Supreme Court, then what was your argument then if you don't have your own figures to argue?
Well, I think Azimio had, elections are a question of two things. Elections are both qualitative and quantitative. And so, because Azimio, quantitative means really the results. So you want to say these are the numbers, these are the figures. So Azimio did not focus too much on the quantitative aspect of the election in terms of the numbers, because at that time, obviously we didn't have the results. But also, although we presented some forms here and there that had been tampered, we didn't have the forms for the whole country. So Azimio focused primarily on the qualitative aspect of the election. The qualitative aspects of the election includes matters such as, the voter turnout issue, matters such as, the areas where there was suppressed turnout as a result of people being turned away, matters of, improprieties in the election, matters of the mess at IEBC, the qualitative aspect, that the quality as a whole of the election was greatly compromised to the other side's favor. You remember the issue of Kakamega and Mombasa that we argued in the Supreme Court, lowered created voter apathy in those Azimio strongholds. You remember, the issue of the voter turnout. The voter turnout being very inconsistent, and so on. So we focused more on the qualitative, and the quantitative aspect of an election is important, but more so how you arrive at figures is more important, because you don't want a situation where people come up with figures and you don't question how they came up with those figures. In an election, you must have you must have a process that justifies the end results, and the process must be above board. So that was basically the question, the whole issue of the Supreme Court. It was mostly a qualitative as opposed to a quantitative analysis of the evidence or the election itself.
All right. Let's talk about your book, and of course, in particular, the timing of this book. The time you released the book is quite interesting. You said you had this book since February. Why didn't you release it then? Why now? Who are you trying to punish?
So that question, I think I have answered that question before, but I want to answer it on this show. Mm-hmm. The reason I finished the book in February, but the reason I didn't release it then is because I still, I am in Azimio, and I am in Azimio to stay, and I want Azimio in all its plans and all its challenges against the current government to succeed. And so at that time, Baba had just come back with the whistleblower results, and he had started the movement for mass action, or Maandamano, as we call them. And so I had thought maybe it would have been wrong for me at that time to release the book, because it will appear, or I may have, even diverted attention from his initiative. And so I decided to give him time and see whether the initiative or the action that he wanted to take will be effective or will bear fruits. And so when I only now eventually decided to release the book after the so-called Easter deal, when Baba called off mass action, I realized that the game is over. The cards are down. Everything is. The dialogue thing is going nowhere. I think in everybody's assessment, I think it's it's a waste of time. And so there's nothing really happening now to prevent me from releasing the book. And so I thought it was time.
So you don't believe in bipartisan talks?
There's no such thing as bipartisan talks. That is just a waste of time. It is a group of legislators, appearing to be, discussing matters that both sides know are going nowhere. If you ask me, I don't want to recommend what action I think would be effective, but this particular action is completely ineffective. Already we can see that the action is really going nowhere. It's a way by the government. It's a clever way by the government to throw something at the Azimio side and keep them busy, make them look like they're being listened to, or they're And also I think it was a way for the Azimio side to save face by not just calling off the Maandamano without a reason. So I suppose the game is up.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. What were you expecting, of course, during the demonstration staged by Azimio la Umoja before now, giving, at least bipartisan talk a chance? What were you expecting? What was the end game for you?
For the mass action?
Yeah.
So mass action around the world, in democracies that are developed, and in people who understand what the power of the people means, is a way for the people to express their displeasure to those that they have granted the reins of power. It is a way for the weak to impress upon the strong, so that they are not oppressed. It's a very fundamental tool, and it's a tool that we must safeguard with everything that we have. And therefore, to me, first of all, just for us to express our displeasure, whether it is on the issues of electoral injustice or justice, whether it is on the issues of cost of living, whether it is on the issue of the broken promises by this government, the mass action for me, it was the way to go. You don't have discussions with a government that has you are saying has taken has stolen your vote. It is oppressing the people. All these things. Dialogue is of no consequence, because you are not trying to get to part of that government. Your business as opposition is to make the government either work, or to make their lives completely difficult if they refuse to work for the people. That is the work of opposition. And so for me, I would have wanted, now that we are not going for anything meaningful, for us as Azimio to take our opposition role very seriously and put this government in absolute check without mixing issues. And so therefore, that is why I was in full support of mass action, because this government needs to be put in check, and for this government to remain completely under the people's scrutiny, and for the people to be alert and exercise extreme civic, alertness, to be civically alert and active, because a government of this nature that has come in and has started acting in very unpalatable ways, appointing people against the constitution, appointing people who the people themselves have rejected, appointing very questionable characters into very high places in government, bringing in GMOs, allowing matters that Kenyan public, even the Supreme Court itself the other day, introducing LGBTQ rights in a country like Kenya. Those are the things we should have been on the streets about. I would have been on the front line if there was mass action that was specifically, even on the issue of the Supreme Court and LGBTQ. I would have been happy for us to barricade and picket outside the Supreme Court until they review that judgment. That's how you work. You don't work by having no plan. You don't work by acting as if you are responding to everything that that is thrown at you. You work on the basis of a plan and on the basis of a cause of action. So for me, as you see, I have taken a back seat because I will not be part of something that I feel is going nowhere. I've also, of course, I decided to take time to reflect. And of course, I was also giving my book priority, which I am glad, it has been well received.
Right. You claim to be, still in Azimio. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I'm staying in Azimio. I'm not going anywhere. If you read my book, you will know that my philosophical grounding, some of us, Evans, I'm glad I'm talking to young people. And I want to tell young people that there are three types of men and women. But since I'm a man, I'll talk about men. There are men of wood, there are men of stone, and there are men of iron or steel. When you're a man of wood, a little fire throws you up in flames. If you're a man of stone, you get a little fire and you crack. If you're a man of steel, you love fire. Some of us love the fire. Some of us stay. The fire only makes us better. But I want to tell you, if you read my book, you will see that there's a philosophical grounding in the book. And I have taken time to explain my philosophy in the book. And you will never see me working with this government because I don't believe in their philosophy or lack thereof, or their ideology or lack thereof. I will engage and be active in the affairs of this country simply to bring, simply to bring order in the management of our public affairs. I have said that as young people, we must begin to take charge because we have relegated and delegated our responsibilities to the older people who, in my view, have failed. And we are the greatest stakeholders as young people, because not only do we have as a people, as a young populace, we have a longer time to stay in a country, in this country. So if it is messed, we have the longest to suffer. But also the young people are the ones who bear the brunt of a mismanaged country. Because when there are no jobs, it is the young people who go jobless. When all the systems fail, it is the young people who suffer. And of course, it is the young people who have young children who are going to schools that are, some of them are in schools, others are young and they have young families. So we as young people have the most to basically to lose if the country is mismanaged.
All right.
And yes, so as to answer your question, I am extremely, right now as we speak, my home party is Azimio, and it is because I still ascribe and prescribe to the ideology as the ideology behind Azimio, led by our leader Raila Odinga.
And you're not saddened by the negative light it will shed on Azimio leadership, and of course the party and Azimio leadership in particular. You're not saddened by those, your action, of course, publishing the book that might bring out the negative part of, disorganization that happened within the Azimio La Umoja fraternity.
I don't think it does that, Evans. The book does not portray the leadership, the Azimio leadership in negative light. I think the book actually, in a sense, exonerates them, because the Kenyan people who have been asking, they have been asking, why did Raila lose? I mean, he had the people, and the system was not against them. Even if he didn't have it, it was not against him this time. So it is actually, the book is shedding light as to the factors, because people were confounded, and they thought maybe at some point they thought the fault was Raila Odinga's fault, or maybe he didn't even have the people. But now you have a situation where there is a clear explanation. So the people who are making that argument that maybe the book will paint the leadership of Azimio in a certain light are the people who have not read the book. But also, it is important for us.
All right. I'm sorry to cut you short, but you're running out of time. But there is one thing that I would like to seek clarity from you. Of course, you said election in Kenya are not won, are taken. And even gave account of, the two comparison between the two leaders, that is President William Ruto and Azimio la Umoja leader, that is Raila Odinga. And in your analysis, you said for this one, Ruto had a plan, and of course, he outsmart you. In this, going by your account of which election are not won but taken, is it fair to say President William Ruto, of course, is, by all means and standard, really, if the word we can use is take, instead of win is legally, and of course all these, the maandamano that Azimio is advocating for are all for nothing, because election are not won but taken, and President William Ruto, of course, took it.
Yes, that is correct. But I want to say in conclusion that one of the things I've said is that we must begin to, to reform the electoral system to ensure that elections are actually won. If you read the book, I have given my proposals in terms of that we need to create an IBC that Kenyans can actually believe will deliver a free and fair election. As it has been for the last 20 years, IBC has never been able to deliver a free and fair, credible presidential election. So whoever has been able to take it is the one who took it.
All right. A quick one for you. Are you eyeing any elective seat very soon?
Elections are at least 4 years away, even. So, I mean, soon is when is soon?
In the near future. Because this is one question that has been asked by our viewer, of course. Are you eyeing for any elective post in the near future? If I can reframe the question.
I just want to tell the young people of Kenya we'll continue to give leadership. We'll continue to give our ideas, and we'll continue to speak our mind. And when the time comes, the young people of Kenya will make a decision on the people they feel are speaking their language.
All right. Senator Bao Ole Kanchori, of course, thank you so much for making time to speak to KUTV Primetime News. It always a pleasure, of course, there shedding light on what could have possibly gone wrong for Azimio la Umoja, one Kenya presidential candidate by then Raila Amolo Odinga. Now, let's move on to some other stories. The Advocate Complaint Committee, that is Commission, has recovered over 6 million from July 2022 to March this year, withdrawing by advocate without justification that was meant for client who requested their services to pursue court cases. They recovered monies as a result of complaint filed by Kenyans against advocates for a failed advocate-client relationship for their clients seeking services of rogue advocate or advocates failing to attend court as agreed, and also dishonesty.
During the 2021-2022 financial year, the Advocates Complaints Commission recovered over 23 million shillings from advocates which were returned to Kenyans who suffered from a failed advocate-client relationship. According to the Commission's Secretary George Nyakundi, the Commission also submitted about 352 complaints against advocates to the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms during the last financial year. During a sensitization forum on the mandate of the commission, Nyakundi said they have already filed 114 fresh charges against advocates at the Advocates Disciplinary Committee received from July last year to March this year.
We have so far facilitated the return of some of the documents that the advocates could be holding, and also facilitated receipt of over 6 million shillings, which the advocates are withholding without justification. For the last financial year, in such a period, we subject about 352 complaints to ADR and facilitated collection of over 23 million shillings to Kenyans who have suffered in the hands of the advocates, where their money was being held without justification.
Nyakundi says the commission has been receiving the biggest chunk of complaints from Nairobi, followed by Kiambu counties.
They were able to sensitize over 200 participants drawn from all the sub-counties in Kakamega, and the engagement has been quite fruitful.
Kenyans seeking services of advocates have therefore been advised to do a background search and find a proper advocate to represent them to avoid falling prey to quack and unresponsive advocates. According to Nyakundi, other complaints revolve around advocates failing to render services where they fail to attend court as agreed between the advocate and the clients. Yvonne Kemuma, KUTV.
Alright, it's now time for the latest update in the world of sports. Now, Namibia will not host the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations this year, according to the statement issued by the Ministry of Sports and Youth in Botswana that confirmed that Namibia had terminated the joint bid to host 2027 AFCON after the Namibian government failed to approve the budget bid cost. The Confederation of Africa Football, that is CAF, had opened the bidding process for the 2027 Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations AFCON hosting rights. However, the new host of the tournament will be announced before September. Striker Oliver Giroud has signed a new contract with the Italian Giants that will see him until 2024. The move comes a day after the French forward scored the goal that took his side to the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. The Italian champions confirmed that the contract of the French attacker expires at the end of the next season. Giroud, who is the top scorer of the French national team, has scored 27 goals for AC Milan since he was assigned from Chelsea at the beginning of last season. That's all we had for you this time round. Of course, many thanks for keeping us company in the last 15 minutes or so. But my name has been AUMA Evans. Moses Gitonga has been on our sign language interpreter tonight. Many thanks for those who made this. Until next time, bye bye for now, and do have a lovely and fantastic night. See you again.
This time we live as one.
A loving husband and father. Nothing is too good for my daughter.
Kabla ya mwezi mtukufu wa Ramadhan kuingia, ni saa ngapi, ni wakati gani, ni siku gani Ramadhani iingie, kila mmoja alikuwa anafaa awe na hima siku ya Idi, kuwa na furaha, jitakase, waombee waliotangulia maombi, wafanyie maombi. Kwa hivyo bado nafasi unayo. Man swama Ramadhan.
Maulaya salli wa sallim daiman abada.
What's up, fashionistas? Looking for a show that brings you the latest in the world of fashion, glamour, creativity, and style? Fashion Diaries got you sorted as we explore street fashion, modeling, runways, red carpet events, and so much more.
Catch me, Ashley as Sachi, as we unlock the greatest fashion events. Keep it locked.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audio-visual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4255 or SMS us on 0739-110-544. KUTV, a new experience.
This program is rated 16.